Aloha, my name is Heather Starborough. I've got a great art project put together for you. It's one that's great for all ages, kids on up through adults. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Let's meet our drawing subject. It's this little guy. He may be familiar to you. He's our Hawaii state fish, a triggerfish, and most famously known as the Humuhumu nuku apua'a. But don't be intimidated about drawing this little guy. We're going to go step by step together. For the drawing demonstration, I'm going to be using one of these. These are fantastic. It's an eraser pen. I love them. My kids love them. We use them at home all the time for schoolwork. It's the power of the pen without the fear of the permanent mistake. So I'm going to be using one of these. You can too. I don't have any preferences. This is the set that I use. Basic colors, black, blue, red, nothing fancy. It costs about $8 at Long's. At any time, feel free to pause the video and take the time that you need to go through these steps. And here's a tip that you can use while you're doing your drawing. Draw lightly, use light pressure. This will make it so much easier to erase pencil lines that you don't want or that you want to change, and any mistakes. Okay, let's begin. If you take a look at our picture of our humu, he's nicely centered, and that's how we want our fish to be for this picture. So we're going to help ourselves out by giving ourselves little guide boundaries, and we're going to erase those at the end. So don't worry about them. They're not going to be permanent. That's just to give us a guide. And then the next step is to determine how big our fish is going to be. You can use your hand and you can measure. So we're measuring just the main part of his body, not his tail. And so I would start that about right there. So I might make myself a little mark right there. And again, these are all marks that we can erase. We're laying out our foundation right now. And you can see the tail will fill up that part just perfectly. So the next step is to take a really good look at our humu. And what we want to do is we want to see what kind of common shapes or shape that we notice that this humu makes. This is going to help us to draw this fish. This is what I do when I'm about to draw something I've never drawn before, or I don't feel confident in drawing. So this is what I like to do, and I do it all the time. And it actually helps me to make a more accurate drawing of what I'm going to draw. So when I mean common shapes, look for common shapes, I mean shapes like ovals, squares, triangles, that kind of thing. So when you're looking at this little guy, what kind of shapes do you see? Maybe you see an oval. Maybe you see a diamond. That's what I mean. And his tail, that could be a smaller triangle. Now don't worry about all the different details here. We're starting from the beginning, and this is what's going to make it so much easier to draw complicated looking things. So let's get started with our drawing by drawing our humu using the idea of common shapes. For me, when I'm looking at him, I think I'm going to go with the diamond shape. We're going to work on the main body part first. We're not going to worry about the tail just yet. All right, so we want his mouth to start about here, and don't worry about this first part. You don't have to make your lines perfect. We're just going to draw out a rough triangle. Remember, we're going to refine everything as we go along. I'm going to blunt the nose area of this diamond. And as I'm drawing, I'm always remembering to really make an effort to keep my eye on my subject. Doing so is going to guide my hand where it needs to go. Now I'm going to add on my tail, and we talked about that it makes a triangle generally, so I'm going to overlap it. Okay, I know this looks just like a triangle and a diamond stuck together, but this is how we begin. Don't be afraid to move your paper around. Now I'm going to start working the body. And this is why we use our pencil lightly so we can erase. I keep my eye on the part that I want to draw. I'm noticing how it curves and it kind of makes a little point right there. Now I'm just shaping the body. Just shaping the body. And as I go along, I erase lines I don't like. Nothing's permanent. Let's get into the details. First thing I would start with is the placement of the eye. And I think one of the easiest ways to do this is if you've got a reference photo in front of you, go ahead and use your fingers and figure out, okay, it's about that far away from his mouth. All right, so I'm gonna put about right there. All right, so his eye's gonna be about right there. Now, this part of his body, take a good look at it, just at the dark part. Try to ignore all the details for now. You can see it goes down from the eye, about like so. And then it goes back along the body. So let's start here. Always take a good look at your subject as you're drawing. That's your best guide. Let's work on this back part. Again, look at the common shape it represents. I see triangles. You see one here, and then this other line makes another triangle. So just think of it in that way. We're getting there. Now, it's kind of hard to tell, but he has a little side fin right here. I'm keeping my eye on the photograph 99% of the time. If you do that, your hand will guide you. We're putting in these little fin lines on the top and bottom fin. I would suggest using a regular black ballpoint pen. It's probably the only part that you won't be using a thick marker pen for. Let's erase our boundary lines. Now we're going to use our Sharpie pen and outline everywhere that we've got pencil lines, except of course the fins. All right, yes, we finished drawing out our Humuhumu. We've outlined it with pen. It's looking great. You should have all the main unique markings that make our Humuhumu beautiful. And now we get to do the next part, the adding color part, which is a lot of fun. When you're looking at your subject, in this case is our Humuhumu, let's take a look at this area here. It's not just yellow, is it? It's actually a combination of color. So As you're going through your coloring, think about that. Look at your picture and see the different shades that are being represented in the photograph. So when I'm coloring a large space, I'm actually coloring in a circular motion. That will help to eliminate that issue that sometimes happens when we're coloring with crayons where you can see the lines. I've laid down a nice foundation of yellow. I like to blend my colors because it creates more interest in the picture. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, just in some parts. These parts of the fin, they're so thin and light in the water. I'm just going to cover them with just a light covering. And there you have it. We've got our finished Humuhumu. At this point, now you could take it a step further. If you drew it on watercolor paper, go ahead, get your watercolor paints out and do a little bit of crayon resist. Color the back with the watercolor. It'll look fabulous. Be sure to get it framed and put it on your wall. I hope you had a great time. Until next time, aloha.